I took way too long getting prepared for this video at the very last second, so the lighting is not how it usually is when I film, so I couldn't film where I usually film. I had to use the light from the windows. So see if I left anything embarrassing in the background and didn't realize it until post. Okay guys, welcome to today's video. We're gonna get right into it because I'm really excited to do this video. I'm gonna share with you my all-time favorite books. I've got 13 here. If that's too many, maybe we'll do a part 1 and part 2. We'll have to see how this goes. I'm super excited to share my favorite books with you guys. I don't have a lot of young adult books in here. I am a young adult author, so you would think that I'd like more YA or that I consider more YA my favorite books ever, but my favorite young adult book is the one that I'm writing. So let's just get into it. There are all sorts of genres mixed in here, but your girl likes her some scary books, and a lot of these books are a little bit scary. The first book I want to talk about is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. This book, I read this book when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. This book follows Jim Nightshade, amazing name, and William Holloway as they visit a carnival run by a man named Mr. Dark. And essentially, without spoiling anything, the carnival sucks the life force out of the patrons. It's an evil carnival. I love an evil carnival. You will see later on in this video. That's one of those things that makes me pick up a book. Didn't like Caraval though. This is not my unpopular opinions tag video. I don't want to talk about Caraval or Caraval. This book, so good. The hero is a librarian. They use laughter to fight the bad guys, and it hooked me for life. The next book I want to talk about is super unexpected, I think, for me, and that is Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. This is one of 2 of the Sandra Bullock movie adaptation movies that I saw before I read the book itself, because a lot of these books came out when I was young. A lot of the movies I saw on TV while my mom was watching them or that we owned, and then I realized they were also books, and that's why I picked them up, and they became some of my favorite books. But the Yaya Sisterhood has 2 tropes that I fucking love, and the first one is the girl gang. So if you guys don't know, the Yaya Sisterhood consists of 4 best friends down in Louisiana who are now in their 70s, and they have, you know, really deep, sordid, entangled history. And this particular book, this is a second in a series. This book follows the Yayas basically kidnapping one of their members' daughters, Vivi's daughter, Citali. They kidnap her and take her to a cabin because she unfortunately got misquoted in an article saying some shit about her mom that was really terrible, and now her mother is all upset. So they force her to kind of sit down and look through the Yaya scrapbook to understand her mother better now that she's an adult. So the other trope that this follows, which might be more of a plot device, but I love it, is the dysfunctional family trope. I love a fucked up family because mine was mostly normal. This third book is kind of controversial because a lot of people really don't like it. I'm learning as I spend more time on the internet, but George Orwell's 1984 is one of my favorite books. This is the first book I ever read where the ending made me go, no! Again, I read this book probably way too young. I think you start reading this probably like sophomore year of high school. I read this when I was probably 11, and it blew my fucking mind. It is just so, it's so rife with betrayal. It's so screwed up the way the world in 1984 works, and it's like scary how prophetic these types of books are nowadays. That's why I don't like dystopian, but this one hit me early enough in my life where I love it. And just to be so betrayed by your narrator and just so hopeless, and it's, I know everybody says how good of a book this is. People hate it because it's like overrated, but I love this book. This next book is an extremely well-loved copy, so please don't be too judgmental. I've had this book since I was 7 years old, and it is Roald Dahl's Matilda. Matilda is the first telekinetic girl with shitty family on this list, but she's not the last, don't worry. Matilda, if you don't know, follows a young lady named Matilda Wormwood who has a shitty, neglectful, terrible, awful, abusive family, and sort of goes through her trials and tribulations of trying to be a nice, good, special person in a not so nice, not so good, not so special world. and she meets like-minded people who kind of help her have the life she deserves. And if you were a smart little bookish girl like me growing up, Matilda was your girl. The next book on my list is the second Sandra Bullock movie adaptation, where I saw the movie way before I saw the book, and then read the book and then fell in love with it, and it is Alice Hoffman's Practical Magic. This is the book that got me on the witch train. Again, I read this probably a lot younger than I was supposed to read it. We owned the movie growing up. I watched that movie when I was like 6 years old, and I shouldn't have, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and this is one of my all-time favorite books. This story follows the Owens family. The Owens women are cursed to never love and live happily ever after. All the men they love die. We follow primarily sisters Sally and Jillian Owens, who one has, you know, a beautiful family and children and still gets, you know, shit on by the curse, and the other one has a wild life and runs away from, you know, the family and the problems and still ends up getting fucked by the curse. And so it's kind of them coming together and figuring out how to clean out the skeletons from their closets, basically. Oh, so good. I love a sister story. There's a million sister stories on this list. The next book on my list is Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. I have read all of Gillian Flynn's books so far, and this is her debut, and this is a bonkers book. This is my Southern Gothic V.C. Andrews dysfunctional family murder mystery jam. It's my jam. It is so good. Essentially, the plot of this story is we follow Camille Preaker. She is a journalist doing not so well in Chicago, and some brutal murders start happening in her podunk hometown, and she goes home to kind of investigate and get the scoop so that she can, you know, get a boost in her career, and she has to deal with her fucked up baby sister Amma and her crazy ass mother Adora. So we've got Munchausen's by proxy, we've got self-harm, we've got corrupt cops, we've got a fucked up dollhouse, we have got so many awesome elements to this story. And you know, Gillian Flynn, I heard it said Gillian recently, ever since Michelle McNamara's book came out, and Miss Flynn wrote the foreword to it. I don't know how to say her name, so somebody help me out. But this book is like the dysfunctional family Bible, and I just love it so much. This, like, Gone Girl got all the hype. Gone Girl got all the hype. This book is so much better than Gone Girl. This next book is genuinely one of the scariest books that I have ever read in my entire life, and I read it only recently, and it has become a huge influence on me, and that is Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. This book is claustrophobic and confusing and twisty and bizarre and rich, and it grabs you by the throat and refuses to let you go. It's relatively short. It's about 175 pages, and I read this in like 2 hours because I could not stop. It is that good. It is, without giving too much away, essentially a parapsychologist wants to do some research on a house that is very well known to have some kind of paranormal haunting activity type of thing, and he sends out an ad to have some people come and stay there with him, and the heir to the house stays there along with our main character Eleanor and another woman named Theodora. So it just follows what happens in that house, and I won't say anything else because I'll give it away, but go read that book. That is the best classic horror of like all time. I say that as my next book is actually generally lauded as the best horror novel of all time. It actually says on the front, the most terrifying novel ever written, and that is William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. This is a surprise to no one. I love The Exorcist. I'm obsessed with this story. The movie, I literally will watch it as like, some people will watch a Disney movie to like hang out, calm down. I watched The Exorcist. Like, I love this movie and I love this story. If you don't know, 12-year-old Regan McNeil starts to act kind of strange when she makes an imaginary friend named Captain Howdy through a Ouija board. And so we follow what happens to poor sweet Regan McNeil. If you read my books, you can keep your eyes open for Easter eggs regarding The Exorcist, because there's a lot. We're now into my top 5 all-time favorite books, and this is another well-loved copy, so you'll have to excuse me, but it is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. This is my all-time favorite classic novel. Like, my child will be named Scout. I've said this a million times. It's still true. I'm sorry, my future daughter, if you're watching this, your middle name is probably Scout, and you can blame Harper Lee. This book means so much to me. I grew up in the South. I grew up with racist people all around me. I grew up with racist family members, and I was taught, but from a young age, that life is not fair for everybody, and that to do the right thing can mean you become an outcast. And this book had a profound impact on me the first time I ever read it. I was probably 13 years old. We didn't actually read this in high school, which was really surprising to me, but I reach for this book whenever the world is really, really shit. And I just love it. And I don't want to talk about Ghosts at a Watchman. This next book is genuinely one of the scariest books I have read in my entire life, and it is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. Oh my god. This book is fucking amazing. I recently read it. It's a recent love, but it is an intense infatuation. This book is bananas, and it's so brilliantly written. It follows this 14-year-old girl named Marjorie who's exemplifying symptoms of mental illness. It's all told through the point of view of her 8-year-old sister Mary, and her dad thinks she is possessed by a demon. Her mom thinks she is mentally ill, and then a camera crew offers to videotape Marjorie's experience for a reality show, and the family, in dire financial straits, agrees, and we follow the way that this unravels the tapestry of their family slowly and painfully, with lots and lots and lots of scares. My third favorite book of all time is actually a series. If I have to pick, I'm gonna pick the second book, but I only have the omnibus of the series itself, and that is the Forbidden Game series by L.J. Smith. If I had to pick, it's book 2, The Chase. The books are The Hunter, The Chase, and The Kill. So Forbidden Game follows Jenny Thornton and her friends. They decide to play a game one night that's a paper house and cut out dolls, and they get transported into this world where Julian, this guy, think like David Bowie in The Labyrinth, but like scarier and also kind of hotter. He loves Jenny, and he wants to basically make her his, and they go through all kinds of crazy shit. And what I love about this is it's a typical tropey, I'm an evil bad guy and I want this beautiful innocent blonde girl, but this girl is such a badass. She's such a badass. All the women in this book, in this whole series, are badass. They don't take shit from nobody. Even like the most innocent little flower baby still like beats some ass, and like Julian, who's the villain, is so complex and so evil but sympathetic, and it's just, it looks like 90s pulp trash, and it kind of is, but it's so well written and the story is so great, and I just love it. It's just so good. And this is 3 books, so like you feel like you did something when you read this, because this is not that long. Okay, no one is allowed to laugh at me and my messed up copy of this book, but my second favorite book of all time is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling, and I'm showing it to you like this because I don't have a dust jacket on it anymore, okay? It is well loved, and I don't care. I need a new copy. I know that. This book is my favorite because it introduces Remus Lupin, who is my literal father, my favorite character ever. It is the book where Hermione stops being so annoying and starts being the badass woman that we know her to be. She is my second favorite character ever. And this book introduces some of the darker themes of Harry Potter. It introduces sort of the underbelly of the wizarding world in a more concrete way than we had been shown before. We knew there were bad wizards in 1 and 2, but we didn't really understand the lengths that people were going to, the desperation, and the true evil underneath not just Lord Voldemort, but in all kinds of factions of life, including the very blatant racism against Remus Lupin when he was the only competent defense against the dark arts teacher. I don't want to talk about it. this book is so great. And I'm pretty sure this is the book where Hermione punches Draco. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like 100% sure. And how do you not love that? Draco deserves to be punched every second of every day. And this is probably no surprise to anyone, but my all-time favorite book is Carrie by Stephen King. If you don't know, Carrie follows the story of Carrie White, who is an ostracized, bullied high school student with a batshit crazy mother who develops telekinetic powers following the beginning of puberty, i.e. the first time she gets her period. And it ends with a lot of murder and death and blood because it's Stephen King. But this book is Stephen King's debut, and it is my favorite book of Stephen King's. It is something I reach for over and over and over and over again. I read it every Halloween. It is just brilliant. If you've ever been a teenage girl, if you've ever known a teenage girl, if you're gonna be a teenage girl, if you used to be a teenage girl, if you've seen a teenage girl before, read Carrie, because I don't know how these grown men, him and Paul Tremblay, how they get teenage girls so right. This book is scary, and it's funny, and it's really sad, and it's really fucked up, and it is just... And there you guys go. Those are my top 13 favorite books of all time. If any of those books are your favorite books too, let me know. Let's talk about them. If you hate any of those books, let's definitely talk about it. I want to know why you hate those certain books. If this was interesting to you and you like my content and the dog tail in the background that keeps floating by, please subscribe. I make new videos every Saturday. I blog every Wednesday over on Tumblr, and I will see you guys next Saturday. Goodbye.